Okay, here we are with CM 180, Chapter 5. That's Clay Marble. Read 180, Chapter 5. All right, let's take a look at the questions for today. What are folk tales? And so you'll write that down on your packet. A story originating in popular culture, typically passed on by word of mouth. Example from Pakistan, Mirza Sahiba. B, Mexico, Lerona, La Lerona. Hopefully I said those right, guys. Maybe you can help me, teach me how to say those correctly. Number 2, why was Kong commanded to lead the Cambodian army into battle? He bragged that he killed a tiger when it was actually his wife who did it. Number 3, who is Jontu? Jontu is the main character's best friend. The main character is, no, that's not right. The main character is Dara. Okay, let's look at it again. Who is Jontu? Jontu is the main character's best friend. The main character is Dara. All right, now let's read our pages for today. The days at the border passed quickly. I enjoyed spending my time with Jontu, since she was usually outgoing and friendly. Sometimes she would come up with new ideas about what to play, and sometimes she would just sit in the shade and tell me stories. Make sure to highlight what I highlight. So highlight that, this, everything that you see highlighted. What I enjoyed listening to most were the folk tales she told, some of which I had heard before my own grandmother. One more time. What I enjoyed listening to most were the folk tales she told, some of which I had heard before from my own grandmother, but many of which were new to me. One of my favorites was about Kong the Brave, a coward who bragged that he had killed a tiger when it was actually his wife who had beaten it to death. "How can a woman kill a tiger?" he sneered. "I'm the one who did it." When the king heard about it, Kong was commanded to lead the Cambodian army into battle on a huge elephant. In his terror, Kong accidentally jabbed the elephant's eye with his spear. Howling in rage and pain, the elephant charged into the enemy ranks, scattering them, and Kong the Brave became a true hero. Jontu would pace back and forth excitedly as she told the story, her eyes sparkling as she acted out the part of the tiger, then Kong, then the elephant, all the while bouncing her baby brother on her hip. I would listen to her, spellbound, amid a small audience of other children. Sometimes Jonsu also used folktales to explain things to me. Not all children grow up with one war being fought after another, she said. In other places, and even in Cambodia during peacetime, the children grew up without seeing a single soldier. Then why are there all these different armies fighting each other now? I asked. Even on the border, there were separate military base camps made up of Khmer Rouge soldiers, Khmer Sarai soldiers, and Khmer People's National Liberation soldiers, not to mention the Vietnamese soldiers to the east and the Thai soldiers to the west, all fighting one another. None of it made any sense to me. Do you know the story about the family of deaf men? Jontu answered, a mischievous gleam in her eye. 4 deaf brothers, she said, were living together, quite happily until a crocodile wandered into their house. The oldest deaf brother shouted out a warning, pointing to the crocodile. The second deaf brother, seeing his elder brother with the crocodile, thought they were going to attack him and grabbed a stick to defend himself. The third deaf brother thought the other 2 were planning to kill him, snatched up a knife and brandished it around. When the fourth deaf brother saw his brothers waving their weapons at the crocodile, he threw a rock at it. The rock bounced off the crocodile's hide and hit one of the brothers. Within seconds, All four deaf brothers were screaming and fighting each other as the crocodile slipped out the door. You see, Jontu concluded with a shrug, the leaders of Cambodia are just like those four deaf brothers, fighting among themselves because they cannot hear one another. As much as I loved listening to the stories she told, what fascinated me even more were the things she made. It amazed me the way she shaped things out of nothing. A knobby branch in her deaf hands would be whittled into a whirling top. She would weave strips of a banana leaf into plump goldfish or angular frogs. A torn plastic bag and a scrap from some newspaper would be cut and fashioned into a graceful knife with a long tail. A couple of old tin cans and a stick would be transformed into a toy truck. Whenever Jontu started making something, she would withdraw into her own private world and ignore everything around her, leaving me to mind her baby brother. She would hunch over her project, her fierce scowl keeping at bay anybody who might come too close or become too noisy. But it was quiet and kept, but if I was quiet and kept my distance, she didn't seem to mind my watching her. And so I would stand a little to one side, holding the baby on my hip as Jontu's quick fingers shaped, twisted, smoothed, rolled whatever material she happened to be working with into new toys. All right, let's look at the numbers here. So you're supposed to answer that. Number 4, howling means, and you put the answer. 5, weave means, and you put the answer. Transformed means, and you put the answer. Scowl means, and of course you put the answer.